Before I let you escape, let me say a few things about all the people in this room. It doesn't matter if you're a newbie. It doesn't matter if you've been published 24 times. You know, we all seem to get hung up on the same snags. We might handle them differently, but we're all of the same breed, right? You know, our experiences bring us together. We get together at conferences like this and we get to open up and talk. And I think that's terrific. I was thinking about the theme of this conference, passport to writing. And it reminded me of the thrill I always get when I visit a new country and I get that stamp on my passport. Is anybody else like me? I mean, you get excited about these little things, a little bit of ink on a piece of paper. That excites me. I remember going to Europe a few years ago and going through customs when I landed in Germany. The guy at the counter, he looked irritated to begin with. He just kind of gave a cursory glance at my papers and my passport, and he handed it back to me without stamping it. So I kind of stood there, and I had one of those internal debates in my head. And it kind of went like this. I want a stamp. I might never visit this country again. I think it'd be cool to have the stamp on my passport. Yeah, but Dom, you know, do you want to create a fuss? Look at this guy. He looks like he's in a foul mood right now. Do you really want to pass that passport back across to him? Yeah, but I'm being cheated out of a memory right now. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not the reason he's had a bad day. I think I should slide that passport right back across to him and say, dude, bust out the stamp. Dom, look at the line of weary people behind you. They just got off an 8-hour flight. They don't care about your nerdy little obsession for your passport stamp. Quit being a doomcough and just move on. This entire debate took place in about 2 seconds in my head. And I want to say that sadly, I took that passport back. And so I do not have the stamp from Dusseldorf, Germany. It's not that big a deal, I guess, but you know, 14 years later, I'm still whining about it to you, aren't I? So, I don't have the stamp from Dusseldorf. Now, as writers, you don't really earn the stamps on your writing passport until you've passed certain checkpoints. Your journey in writing and publishing includes specific stops along the way. And I think if you don't get the stamp, you're really not part of the club. It's the reason why when Madonna publishes her children's books, right? Or some other celebrity publishes a book, those of us who have slaved away for years and kind of paid our dues, we're a little suspicious, you know? It might be a great book, I don't know, but I get the feeling that her passport looks like it's been through Dusseldorf. I think her writing passport is blank, you know? She's written songs, but that's not the same thing. Like when some jamoke kind of stumbles their way through American Idol, right? They make complete fools of themselves, they're horrible, and yet they still, a week later, get a recording contract, right? William Hung, she bang, she bang. Guy made millions of dollars. Musicians who have starved for years, they want to see the passport on these people. I got to believe that everybody in this room has a writing passport that is slowly but surely accumulating stamps. For instance, I'll give you an example, the blank page stamp. You got a killer idea for a book? You know that there are going to be people who scratch and claw their way to the front of the line so they don't miss out on a copy at one of those midnight book launch parties, right? Options? Hell yes. Studio options are going to come pouring in. But right now, that page is still blank. You know, you're like, oh, this is a home run. Come on, just start putting one word after another. You're squirming in your seat, trying to think of how you can even begin it. Everybody in this room has felt that 3-ton ball of anxiety when the words just will not come. The blank page is not always just on the page. I think that blank page starts right here between our ears. I have blank pages up here from time to time. There was a time I was driving into Canada. Driving from Seattle to Vancouver. Cruising along, we're in our rental car on the highway, we got the tunes blasting, we're having a good time. I look over, there's a sign on the side of the road. It says, tune your radio to AM 15 something or other and get important information about your border crossing. So I flip the radio over to AM 15 something or other, and it starts telling us about, oh, this is going to be the procedure, this is about how long it will take, blah, 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 blah. And then it says something interesting at the end. It says, 1 out of every 100 vehicles are pulled over for a, quote, more thorough examination. I'm thinking, 1 in 100, what are the odds? Well, it's 1 in 100. So anyway, I got to the border, rolled my window down, and I handed my papers and my ID to this guy in the booth. Now I want to point something out here. I'd been on vacation for several days, so I had one of those scraggly growths of beard on my face, right? I had a ball cap on, I had sunglasses. I probably looked pretty questionable, but certainly not enough to warrant any kind of 1 out of 100 search. Well, that was before the curse of the blank page. This tough guy in the booth kind of looked at me, he studied my ID, and he had one simple question to start with. He goes, "Where do you live?" Now, I want you to understand what happened to my brain at that particular moment. When I'm at a conference or a book signing or a convention and somebody says, "Where are you from?" I always just say Denver automatically. It's just what pops out. Denver, right? That's the name that everybody would recognize. So now I'm about to open my mouth and say, Denver. And suddenly my brain has this little spasm. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. He's got my ID. And on my ID, it doesn't say Denver. It says Littleton. And I'm saying, I better not give an answer that doesn't match the ID. That's going to look really suspicious. So this is how it went down. Where do you live? Littleton, Colorado. I live in Littleton, Colorado. Total blank page. Which was bad enough, except this guy had his follow-up question ready to go without hesitation. What brings you to Canada? Okay, so now again, I'm trying to fill in the blank page. I know the vast majority of you would have sailed right through this. You would have said, dude, I'm on vacation. But because I had botched the first test, because I looked like a thug, I was really trying to ace the second question. And I don't know why, but for some stupid reason, my mind accessed this file from watching old movies. Because in the old movies, do you remember when someone goes to another country? Same question. What brings you to our country, business or pleasure? So now, without any prompting whatsoever, I'm wrestling with how I should answer his second question, and in my pitiful attempt to fill in the blank page, the exchange went like this. What brings you to Canada? Pleasure? He handed back my ID, and he said, "Sir, can you pull your car right over here?" I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. When you are that 1 in 100 at the border to Canada, and they have warned you that it will be a, quote, more thorough examination, they're not kidding. We had to get out of the car, sit on a concrete barrier, and watch as 5 guys came out and tore that rental car apart. I'm not exaggerating. I watched them take the rear seat out of this car. Guys on those little rolly things went underneath, you know, with the shining lights. At the end, they brought a dog out to sniff all the parts that were strewn across the parking lot. It took us more than an hour before we could leave. Ugh. Lady I'm traveling with as we're driving away, she just looked over the top of her sunglasses. You are an idiot. As writers, we have to fill in the blank page, and sometimes it's extremely painful. We think we know exactly what we want to say. Those words should just be jumping out of our fingers into our laptop, right? Dozens of pages at a time, and every one of them worthy of a Nebula Award or an Edgar Award or a Pulitzer Prize or a Newbery. But we have to conquer the monster of the blank page. We need the stamp.